we are actually the first Black-owned bank in the country in South Africa. Our mission is how to unlock human potential. Around 25% of our customers in South Africa live only on social grants that they receive. And so they live on about a US dollar a day. But the fact that our cost base is so low that we can be profitably serve that category is something we want to maintain. And that's kind of the ethos of the company, is keeping it that way.
Well, Rachel, welcome to the Bank Tellers. It's great to have you here. Where to start? So we got to have a little water, coffee before this, and I got to hear your whole background, but you don't have all the time in the world today. So let's do just a quick version of Rachel and how you got to Tyme, and then we'll jump into that part of the world.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me, Zach.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to be here. And so, the themes in my life really have been about financial inclusion and opening up opportunities for women in particular. And that, when I worked in Russia in leasing, I opened the first retail stores. I then worked at IFC and was really focused on financial inclusion. So all of that kind of came together when I met the Tyme team and Koen Jonker. And from the first moment I met him, I thought, this is my home, being at Tyme. So I joined about 5 years ago. And when I joined, we were just one bank in South Africa, Tyme Bank. Our tech team is in Vietnam, and we're thinking what to do in Asia. I joined in January, really, of 2020. So a really important time.
Very unique time to join any company.
Left IFC, joined Tyme, and then we rode through a really amazingly challenging and exciting time all together.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to tell of that time period is that we decided that we needed to go into a second country, and we're thinking Malaysia, Philippines, and we got a phone call from a very good friend who said the Philippines legislation is coming out really soon, and go figure out your partnership and put that all together. And so, but of course we couldn't travel. We were sitting in Hong Kong, no travel. And so what we realized is that nobody else could travel or do things. So lots of different players were just at home waiting for a phone call. So we quickly set up meetings with many potential partners, had ranked them all, and met the Go Conway family, who are partners with GoTyme, did the deal over Zoom, to the point that the first time that the head of the family, who's the chair of GoTyme, Lance Go Conway, and Koen met was actually when we opened the bank. So it was completely done in Zoom, which seems crazy now that we're so far past that COVID period. But it was quite an amazing thing when we tell people now.
It's also a little bit inverted, right? I mean, just in terms of the way you would normally think about these things. You would normally think, or I would normally think, if you're doing something over Zoom during COVID, yada, 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 it actually, this is going to take, my normal sales cycle 6 months is, not that this is a sales cycle, but my normal sales cycle 6 months is going to take 12 because I can't actually go see the person or whatever it is. But it sounds like the inverse. It sounds like because of that kind of just halt in the world, you were able to move a lot faster.
Yeah, so this is in the area of miracles, but we actually, in the first conversation...
I like the area of miracles, let's go there.
In the first conversation we had with them, we decided to build a bank together, and they decided that they would then invest in the South African operation. And what we described and how we wanted to work in that first meeting is exactly how we work today. So
the ethos seems to have maintained. So let's stay on that 2020 piece. So when you joined the bank, the valuation now is around 1.5 billion, something like that. Not quite the same that it was at that point. Tell me about where the business was then, because it seems like an amazing 5-year growth trajectory.
So when I joined Tyme Bank. So Tyme is the whole.
Maybe let's start there. So let's taxonomy of Tyme.
So we have we are the group, and the group is called Tyme, and the group is headquartered in Singapore.
Yes.
We do not have consumer or retail operations anymore. We're headquartered in Singapore.
So we have a lot of Western listeners. So thinking of it, could you think of it similar to a bank holding company in the U.S.? Okay.
Yes, similar to a bank holding company is Singapore.
Okay.
Then we have Tyme Bank, which is in South Africa, and that is wholly owned by Tyme.
And chartered financial institution.
We have a full banking license there. Yes,
Yeah.
and a full board, full bank operations in South Africa. Our
Do you have a
second,
branch?
no, we don't have branches, but we do have our
It was
famous
it was kind of a
kiosks.
softball.
We have our famous kiosks in
Yeah.
the retail stores.
Right.
Our second bank is called Tyme Bank, which is in the Philippines, and that's a joint venture with the Conway Group, which is a large conglomerate in the Philippines, which has had all the pieces we were looking for: a large loyalty program, and 4,000 stores, 52 malls, and we need to always partner with retailers as part of our model. So that's Tyme Bank. Then we have our tech hub, which is in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City. That's our largest office, and that's called Tyme X, or internally we call it Tyme X. And so that they also feel like they have a home in the operation. So we have the two banks plus Tyme X. We also have just recently launched our SME lending product into Indonesia, and we also are calling that now Tyme Indonesia.
So Tyme X, I'm fascinated by that piece. How much of that is it fair? And I know this term is loaded and we can rework these terms, but is it fair to think about that as banking as a service in some way, or am I misreading that? Because it sounds like a piece of...
We don't provide any services to external parties.
Right.
It's a captive. You could call it banking as a service to captive, but we just say we power the banks out of Vietnam, out of this operation. So the engineers, we have most of the product people, we have a massive operation in Ho Chi Minh, and both banks are powered out of that, and our future banks will be powered out of that as well. So we call that like the factory or the engine of the operation.
Yeah,
there.
so that's where, R&D, kind of most of the focus is there, and I would imagine anything that's going into Tyme X is then being deployed across and just the software is being software and then doing what it does across the world.
But I was just in Malaysia, as I was telling you, and talking with all of the digital bank CEOs, and they found our structure very interesting because they said, so you have the holding company, and that would have like the chief risk officer, and then you'd have the risk officers all reporting up to that. I was like, no, actually, it's the reverse. The holdco is a service operation to the banks. So people don't report up like this. We in Singapore, we serve the banks with different pieces. We help the banks, but we don't have like an old-fashioned structure where people report into a holding company.
It's the inverse.
It's the inverse. And we think that that's one of the reasons we've been successful is because we haven't created like a top-heavy dominating structure.
Yeah. You mentioned the physical retail presence. I think it's a very unique model. And again, we have plenty of listeners on this continent. We are in Singapore right now, if anyone was questioning that. But for Europeans, folks in the UK, folks in the US, I guess that kind of exists to some degree, but it seems like you're doing something very unique. So tell us more about that.
So at Tyme, we have all these interesting or like cute sayings, and one of them is that we don't believe that people wake up in the morning and say, today I want to go get a bank account. Getting a bank account is not a destination. It's not like some things, ooh, I'm like so excited to get a new bank account.
Right, hopping out of bed.
So we actually think that you need to manufacture the interaction, and you need to do that where people are, that they naturally go to, and where they trust, because banking is all about trust. So with this, we think that we start with grocery stores are someplace that naturally people go to over and over again.
Absolutely.
They go to the same grocery store, they trust that grocery store.
Yeah.
And so when we designed the model, we thought we should actually do the onboarding in stores. So we created these kiosks, and now we're on version, I don't know, like 25. Our first kiosk, when I look at them, it's kind of shocking, but our new kiosks are very sleek. So you walk into the grocery store, and we have kiosks, and they're quite large. So these are in larger stores and all chain, like national retail. So walk in the store, and you can open a bank account in 3 minutes.
I was going to ask
Full
how long.
KYC, everything is done. And at the end, the kiosk prints a debit card for you with your name on it, fully active. And then you can go to the cash register in the store and put money in right then and there. So with the kiosk, we also have ambassadors. So it's not just the kiosk, but we have kiosks plus our ambassadors. Our ambassadors are in the stores, and they're telling people about the accounts. They're really doing a lot of financial education in the store. They tell you about the account. They don't help you on board, but they show you the kiosk. And after you've onboarded and you have your card, they say, would you like us to show you how to download the app and what are the features and actually how do you save money? How do you spend money with us? How do you send money to other people? All the functions of transactional accounts.
Yeah.
Because we believe that most times when you get a bank account, you often like fill in a lot of forms, it takes a while, or someone fills in forms. And then they hand you a package with your debit card and things,
Right.
and they're like, bye.
Or they mail you a package
Or they
2
mail
weeks
you-
later, and then you have to
mail-
call a number, and then you have to
Right.
actually hope it works the first time. And
We feel our ambassadors show you how to do it, so you really learn and you can ask questions there. But also because you always go back to the store, you keep seeing those ambassadors, you see them, so any other questions, you can keep asking questions. So while we call ourselves a digital banking group and are all about digital banking, we don't have back and middle end offices. Right. All of that is automated. What we do believe that people like people, and adults like to learn from other adults. So having the ambassador actually works. So when we first launched in South Africa, about 85% of our customers onboard through the kiosk because you can do digital onboarding as well. But you have to go to a kiosk to get a card. We don't mail them.
Yeah.
And now it's around 70%, but it's been 6 years. In the Philippines, it started around 70, and it's maybe around like 55% kiosk, 45% digitally on board. So we do see more digital and native happening in the Philippines, but the kiosk plays a major role. One, education. Two, we're just present, so people see us often and they keep thinking about us. And just the ease of the onboarding process in the stores means that people quickly onboard and they start to engage with us very quickly, and our activity rates are quite high.
It's a really unique way of humanizing a very inhuman experience.
Yes.
In terms of, I mean, the idea of, because it sounds like you could go in 3 minutes, you got your card, and if you're, leave me alone, like you could go that way, right? Like you don't necessarily have to have the conversation, but it sounds like you could spend half an hour
talking with them, right?
Just learning.
Yes.
That's absolutely fascinating. And so tell us about, I mean, you're kind of alluding to it a little bit based on kind of how you're going to market and whatnot, but tell us about the average makeup of that customer initially in South Africa and maybe how that's changed.
Yes, so in South Africa, we started as more of a financial access, financial inclusion play. And we are actually the first Black-owned bank in the country in South Africa. Our majority shareholder.
That's wild. Okay.
So we took this very seriously, and we thought about, our mission is how to unlock human potential, and we thought how to really energize the community and the population through more accessible banking. And so our customer base in South Africa reflects that initial push, where we have around 70% of our customers are low income, and about 25% of our customers actually live on social grants, which is still very prevalent in South Africa. So they get social grants for about $1 a day, and we serve a high number of these. However, our aspiration is to be a mass market bank, and now that we have almost 11 million customers, we're going upmarket in South Africa. So we are looking to expand in South Africa and serve a broader population in the future and the whole population. And in the Philippines, we learned, and one of the things that we say to people is that when we start talking about digital banking, is that when we can go into our third country, we've now made all the mistakes you can make the first and second time. So we've already done all those things that people do the first time. So one of the things that we learned is that if you really want to be mass market, you need to be aspirational. No one wants to think, oh, I'm poor, and so I need to work with this one, but if I'm not, I can bank here. So it's much better for our whole mission to have a more aspirational bank. And so in the Philippines, we went in with that approach. And so our customer base is much broader from day zero in the Philippines. And that's where we think we will, and that's how we're going to move forward, because we can serve all parts of the population with that aspirational approach.
Yeah, and I mean, the ethos is one thing, and it seems like maintaining that ethos throughout has been very important, but the technology, and before we started recording, and you don't have to go into details if you don't want, but you alluded to how you were actually able to serve.
Yes.
If an American's listening to this saying, a bank that serves somebody that makes $1 a day, how could that ever be a profitable thing? Like that would have to be a nonprofit or something like that, right? So
That we've proven that you can do this profitably. And our cost base is in South Africa about 10% of the incumbent banks. So we are very focused on efficient and lean cost delivery for our customers. And so we're able to successfully, profitably serve that population as well. And it's something that we are proud of, that we've been able to partner with the government in the provision of these grants efficiently as well. So that's something that we're proud of. And our aspiration is to serve the full population. Our goal is to be one of, if not the top retail bank in a country, in the top 3 in all the countries that we operate. So with that, we want to be serving the full population.
Yeah, and it seems like the ability for Tyme X to continue to develop and develop and develop and push these, different products across. It seems like I can see how that flywheel makes a lot of sense churning into a lot of different countries.
Yes, and so what we've done is, if you can in some ways standardize the engine and then customize in the country level, but standardize the engine. And as we grow economies of scale, then we just continue to be leaner and leaner and can take that into many countries.
Yeah.
So it's a little odd, but sometimes we think of ourselves, we could be like the McDonald's of banking, because the kitchen's always the same McDonald's, but you do have tweaks depending on countries.
Yeah.
And so we see that engine in that way, where the kitchen is always the same in the countries that we operate. And that's just that then we think what is important for that customer base in that country.
But at the same time, over time, right? Like you want that I'm walking in to eat at McDonald's, to use the analogy of the metaphor, but eventually I want to walk into the Louis Vuitton store that's a little ways down, right? And that ladder is something that you're building across the whole thing.
Yes, but what we're saying is that we have, you can have the back end part, and the technology is going to be the same whether we're in Indonesia or South Africa or Philippines.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you said a word, which is lean. And lean is what I think fintech needs more of, and especially smart use of technology to achieve that. Sometimes things happen where you raise $250 million and you'd get less lean. But it sounds like, we were talking before, and it sounds like, that ethos is so strong and the focus is so strong in the specific direction that you all are going, that I guess I don't know what the question is, more so, where is that use of funds going to go? Where are you kind of most excited about? And we kind of talked a little bit about AI, but what is the the new bank involvement, the 250 million, this new kind of wave of time? Where do you see that heading?
Well, first, it was a great experience to engage with Nubank, and we do feel very fortunate about this. This was not an introduction that was made by, a fancy investment bank.
How did it start?
Koen, our founder, and plus our co-founder, Chart, and the CEO of Tyme Bank in the Philippines were in New York at a dinner that was organized by Endeavor, which is a nonprofit for founders.
Yep.
And the Nubank founder was the keynote speaker.
Okay.
So I listened to him, and it just happens that they were all leaving at the same time and went down the elevator together. They all introduced themselves.
The elevator pitch, it worked.
It wasn't even a pitch. They just said hello and exchanged information and said at some point we should chat. And then Koen, Chart, and Nate started walking down the street saying, wouldn't it be amazing if they invested in us? And then a couple of months later, there was a first conversation, because the countries we are quite interesting for digital banking.
Yeah.
And then it kind of grew from there, never thinking they would even lead the round.
Yeah.
When we announced the round, we did say that we are looking to launch banking operations in Indonesia. We just recently launched our SME lending, merchant cash advance product there. Mm-hmm. So we're keen on thinking about, we want to be in Vietnam and Indonesia and Southeast Asia. We are looking into some countries where we take our merchant cash advance product there just as one product. So there we have country expansion definitely on the mind. We are moving in AI, and we're expanding and building our resources in that area as well. And we do want to take, Nubank has so many learnings for us, in terms of customer experience, their credit card and how they lead with credit card is super interesting for us. It's something, we don't have credit card yet, so it's definitely something we're thinking about. There are a lot of different learnings that we have from them.
Yeah, I mean, there's this idea of the value-add investor, right?
Yes, they are the ultimate value-add.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say, sometimes that term is maybe not quite as accurate as some VC firms would want it to be, but it sounds like this relationship, I mean,
definitely,
it's a partnership, and it's a lot bigger and a lot more. I mean, you really can do things together. It's not just cash and some advice.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like the sum is greater than its parts in some really interesting ways.
Yes, but it's early days because it just happened at the end of December.
Yeah.
But there's lots of engagement, and we see a beautiful future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems that way. In terms of I can see the ethos alignment. I can see. I mean, was part of Nubank's reasoning, and I mean, not expecting you to speak on behalf of Nubank, but you seem in many ways like the Nubank of this region when I take a step back and think about it. And was that the alignment? Was it simply a matter of we're probably Nubank ourselves, we're going to be focused over here. We're probably not going to make that jump. So let's get involved with Tyme, help them grow, and kind of help the actual world improve. And in emerging markets, especially in Asia, it seems like I'm wondering if that piece folds.
Emerging markets, digital banking is quite interesting, and there are a number of different kind of digital banking groups out there. Both Nubank and Tyme really are focused on emerging markets. So it's a little different than some of the groups that are focused more on the US or Europe side. So I think, from that we found a lot of alignment because the challenges that we face in emerging markets, digital banking, are quite similar.
Yeah.
But I think also there's quite a lot of alignment, at the founder level.
Definitely. I'm curious about, it sounds like you stay very close to customers just through the kiosks and just the way you've built the business, but before you enter a new market, or as you're thinking about a new market, how do you think about doing customer research? And I mean, total addressable market is one thing, but going and having a conversation with somebody and, actually a human, which is what you guys are actually focused on. How do you think about that kind of customer discovery when you're thinking about going into a new market?
I think that we spend time thinking about customers, but we also really rely on our partners. If you think that the Tyme team really had not built anything or even visited Philippines, we really rely on that important partner and the joint venture partner that we have there. And also we really need to have that retailer. And while banks sometimes could be perceived as being not as engaged with customers, retailers, they really know their customers very well.
Yeah.
And retailers are dealing with, they're tight margins, and so they're quite focused on that. So in our discussions with retailers, that's also quite helpful.
Yeah, the mutual incentivization makes a lot of sense.
Yes,
that's fascinating. It really is. Especially in the U.S., we talk a lot about this physical and digital kind of meeting and the experience of the two coming together. And personally, I feel as though that's a conversation, not an action. It's not something that you really see happening. So I wonder if there is a world where the U.S. and Europe learns a little bit from emerging markets and actually starts to implement some of these more humanizing factors a little bit. And I also wonder if AI inversely provides a little more humanizing and availability there in some interesting ways too.
Well, I'm not a bank customer of a European bank in Europe, so
Me
I
neither.
don't know about Europe.
Me neither.
But
I just
I
like
can
to
tell you, so
overgeneralize.
I'm a U.S. citizen, and I definitely think that the U.S. banking system could learn a lot from emerging market digital banks in terms of customer engagement, on all aspects. Yes.
I want to transition a little bit to you. So,
Yes.
Rachel, you have, you alluded to it a little bit up front, spent some time in St. Petersburg, just been through Russia, Kazakhstan, all these different places. And you seem, as I said before, you seem like a very curious person. It seems like your learning curve on all this would have to be very, very steep, right? To go into a new market, to understand the regulations. At one point when we were talking earlier, you were involved in writing regulations on something separate. how do you do that? How do you develop such a steep? How do you learn so much so fast? I guess is what I'm asking. Do you have any secrets for us?
I think that knowing that one person can't know everything,
Sure.
and having those really trusted kind of people in country or around in the ecosystem. I mean, Tyme is an ecosystem player.
Right.
And I personally am an ecosystem type of person, and I'm one part of an ecosystem, and then you have many people in an ecosystem, and if you all kind of work together and leverage that information. And so I spend lots of time in the fintech community in Singapore and in the region. And Singapore is a real hub for that type of knowledge.
Of course, yeah.
And it's a very active ecosystem in terms of chatting all the time about things. And I'm not scared to say I don't know or I need help. I'm very good at saying I need help on this, I need help on this. And so as we all kind of help each other, you've seen this community has really gone like this. And we rely on each other for helping on the learning curve.
It's interesting because, I ask this question to guests sometimes, not all the time because not everybody in the world is that curious. But, sometimes you get the answer, I read a lot, I listen to podcasts, whatever it is. But in my experience, the conversation off the books and having a lot of them really is the way. And it seems like the only way to really understand the nuance and context and, to use a terrible term, where the bodies are buried, truly get it is the conversations with the humans and building that network.
Yeah, so I if you go back to at Tyme, we really believe that people like people and people like to experience things with other people.
Yeah.
That's part of kind of the whole business model. And I think we as a team think about that when we're going into new markets or learning things. Though I can tell you that we do listen to podcasts, and we all had reading assignments about AI over the, let's say, winter holiday to Chinese New Year period of time. Everybody had different things we were supposed to be reading. So we do that part as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun when we share book ideas and things as a leadership team. But if you go into a country, you need to figure out where the skeletons are, where things are.
Yeah.
You need to have really trusted people, and I think those people have, Varun Mittal is one from FinTech Nation.
Yep.
He's been with us every step of the way on this journey.
Yeah, the candid conversations move the needle in a way that, reading the history of banking maybe doesn't in the same way. That's fascinating. So you've been here 5 years.
At Tyme, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the next 5 years is going to be any less exciting. It sounds like the next 5 years are going to be even more exciting, and in your position, a whole new set of interesting challenges, right, on the growth side.
Yeah, we kind of think we're just starting.
Yeah, it feels like, as a $1.5 billion company, it feels like just the beginning.
Yeah, so that's definitely where we think we are, and we do see positive things happening in different countries. Like when you go to Indonesia, you feel this energy that we didn't used to feel there. And I went there many times with IFC, and I never felt that type of energy like now. We feel the same, the political stability in Malaysia is now just surging forward. So a lot of exciting things that we see across Southeast Asia and then other markets, yes.
Outside of Tyme and just kind of in general, what do you, maybe you're just having to work so hard that you don't have the time, but what are the other things you're doing, at night, or, are you a avid cyclist or something like that, or a big reader or anything else, or is it just you're dedicated to the mission and you're all the way in all the time? Do you have hobbies?
We started this conversation when I told you that Kazakhstan was the birthplace of the apple, the horse, and the dog. And so I have 2 dogs, and I've had dogs my whole life. In fact, I even had many Central Asian Shepherds, but I have 2 dogs. But I have to spend a lot of time on the other subject of horse because my daughter is very competes. And so I spend a huge amount of free time worrying or supporting her on that front as well.
Yeah, that does seem a little scary, but also very exciting.
Yes.
And so the context for listeners was that the stirrup was developed in Kazakhstan, right?
Yeah, the stirrup came from Genghis Khan.
Right.
And that helped them conquer a lot of the like Asia, Europe world. But the genetics of the dog, the horse,
Right.
and the
Oh, that's
are
what the
from
genetics and the stirrup was from.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
and so all of that is in my heart.
And you like apples.
And I like apples.
I mean, it all just comes absolutely full circle. Rachel, thank you so much for being here. This was an
Super
absolute
fun.
pleasure. I'm so excited. We'll have to do a check-in in
Yes.
5 years, maybe less than that.
I was going to see if I could weave in, but I don't. And it's Kuhn's thing. Kuhn talks about, sometime you can do this with him. He talks about that when he talked last night, like 2 nights ago, with the founders of the digital banks, is when you start your business and you're a founder, you're like Prometheus. This is his thing. You stole fire from the gods. You're like going to change the world, and then but as time goes on, you become Sisyphus. You're pushing that. You're going up the hill with the big boulder, and it comes down, and you start the next day pushing the same boulder, and the other founders and the other digital bank CEOs are like, I thought I was the only one who felt that way.
Yeah, no.
But one of the challenging moments in our history, Kuhn said to all of us, if I have to be Sisyphus pushing this boulder, I'm glad I get to do it with you guys, which I think is amazing, right?
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love that. Now
Yes.
that is a beautiful place to end.
Yes.
I love it. Thank
Yes.
you, Rachel.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. We'll do this again soon. We'll have you at the show. We're gonna have to give you guys up on stage live, and we'll do a real-time check-in coming in soon.
Okay.
I love it. Thank
All
you,
right.
Rachel.
Thank you so much.
All right.